All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. And in this video, we're going to show how easy it is to pay off debt. And that's what we've been doing for pretty much every single video on this channel. And we'll just do it one more time using something called the velocity method. So how do we pay off debt? Well, the first step is to create a budget because your budget is your debt attack plan, right? So you have your income, expenses, leftover checking and savings. And then in your expense breakdown, you list every single debt that you have. So you have 3 credit cards, an auto loan, a student loan, a mortgage, and on top of that, we have personal expenses that we have to pay for, not tied to debt. So even if you were debt free, these are the things you would still have to pay for: food, gas, insurance, all that other good stuff. And we just combine them into one line item that we would think we would pay per month on average, right? And so what we're going to do here in the velocity method is assume that we have the same income, same expenses, but we're going to do something crazy. Okay. And what is that one crazy thing is not save money and put it into something called a line of credit. So really the only difference between the left side and the right side is on the left side, your checking account is the final destination of your money. And on the right side, it's called a line of credit. So, what is a line of credit? It's basically a financial tool where you could borrow money, pay back, and then use it over and over again. So, a credit card is technically a form of a line of credit, but it's not the type of line of credit that we want to use as what we call our main operating account. So, we're going to use either a personal or a home equity line of credit. And I'll just assume we have a $50,000 8% line of credit. Now, given that we have a lot of debt, okay, relatively a lot of debt, and we have a good amount left over, $1,000 a month. Is it likely that the bank will lend you money, like a $50,000 line of credit? The answer to that is if you need money, then no, because banks don't lend money to people who need it. But for the purposes of this example, we're just going to assume we have a free and clear line of credit. And I think $50,000 should be enough. And by the way, if you don't know who I am, I've gotten over $700,000 in lines of credit. So I think I know what I'm talking about. Okay. So, but remember, banks don't lend money to people who need it. Okay. Now, here's what we're going to do: we're going to move some debts into this line of credit by using something called the cash flow index, right? And then we're going to increase our cash flow. So if you've never heard of the cash flow index, it's a relatively simple formula where you get the balance of the debt and divided by the monthly payment, right? So balance of the debt divided by the monthly payment, and you essentially do that for all of the debts, right? So and then you just kind of sort them from smallest to largest, and the smallest ones means that you get a lot of bang for your buck for paying off the debt, and the large one means that, hey, even if you pay this one off, you don't really get that much cash flow compared to the amount of debt that you have. So this is why, if you want to pay off the mortgage, you literally have to give someone $250,000 for $1,000 in your cash flow, whereas we can just pay off these credit cards and we pretty much get the same amount, right? So that's why we talk about using the cash flow index in order to measure how much bang we get for a buck for paying off the debt. So how much credit card debt is this? This is 5, 8, 15, and I'm going to go ahead and sum it up, and that's $28,000. So let's go ahead and do this. We're going to move $28,000 into our line of credit, and guess what happens here? Oh my goodness. All right. So we literally doubled this number simply just moving this debt into a line of credit. And then the final step is that we're going to put our entire paycheck into the line of credit, take our expenses out, rinse and repeat over and over again. And basically we're making our line of credit as the final destination of our money, not our checking account. So it's just a difference in how we think about our checking account and where should we put our money. Should we actively put money into debt all the time? Or should we try to save it? And that's kind of the reason why most Americans can't pay off debt, because they feel like I have to save this money, right? Saving money is seen as a good thing. Even Dave Ramsey, the number one personal finance expert guru, um, his number one baby step is save $1,000, right? And what we're gonna do is constantly put all of our money into debt, aka the line of credit, and just take out the expenses whenever we need to pay them. And so after every single month, we'll be able to pay down the line of credit by $2,000 until the line of credit is paid off. And so to represent this, what we do is take the previous month's balance, previous month's interest minus our cash flow, And then what we're going to do is take the average daily balance, multiply it by the interest rate, and then divide by 12. And that's how we get the interest for the month. So if you don't know how minimum payments work with lines of credit, it's usually just the interest that you have to pay, or just the interest and a little bit of principal. So think about this. If you're putting your entire $6,000 paycheck into the line of credit, okay, into the line of credit, you're easily going to meet the minimum payment, right? You don't have to even worry about it. Okay. You're easily going to meet the minimum payment. And then you see that after every single month, the balance of the line of credit just goes down, and it's relatively simple. And then you see that in month 15, we paid it all off. Okay. So 15 months, and how much was it? That was about 28K. Okay. 28K. And then now we have the student loan, the auto loan, and the mortgage. And so this is what we're going to do here. So now we have to figure out what the current balances of these loans are. And we have this loan calculator right here. So what we do is put the current month, which is month 15. I'm going to do this 15, 15, 15. And we see here that these are the current balances, the current cash flow index, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to move the car debt into the line of credit first, right? And why is that? Because the average person usually thinks, hey, this student loan has the highest interest rate, So should I focus on the student loan? And that you could do that, but we're going to focus on the auto loan first, because what we're thinking about is bang for our buck in terms of the balance to the payment, right? The ratio of the balance to the payment. So think about it like this. Would I rather pay 16 grand to get $400 back, or 36 grand to get $464 back? So I'm focused on this. I'm going to put this into the line of credit. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this. Whoopsie. All right, I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this. And then this is going to be plus 16904.71. And then what I'm going to do is, ooh, what happened here? Did I accidentally take away? I think I must have taken away something. All right, but let me just do this again. All right, so copy and paste. Okay, so now this 405 goes to 0. And now our cash flow is almost 2,500. Okay, so now we've updated our cash flow, because every time we move our debt into a line of credit, our cash flow increases because the payment just goes away to 481.56. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do this. All right, and now we see that in 22 months, that auto loan was paid off. Ta-da! So easy. All right, so 22 months, and then this is going to be 28 plus 22, I believe. So that's going to be 50K. And then the next one is the student loan and the mortgage. All right, so the student loan and the mortgage, and then at 22 months, what's the balance of these? Okay, so you see that this is 34 grand, and then this is 240 grand. So as you have debts associated with the higher cash flow index, you do have to be sensitive to the interest rate. And this is really important for the 30-year mortgage, right? Now, the 7 and we have a 7% loan, we have an 8% line of credit. Yeah, it's very similar. It's not going to be that big of a deal if we move this loan into the line of credit, but let's go ahead and do that. But the commentary I want to make about interest rates is that it's especially important with regards to the 30-year mortgage. So let me go ahead and do this. Plus 34591.93. And then what happens here is that now we've moved the student loan into the line of credit. So we get the $464.43 of cash flow back. And now we're almost at $3,000 a month. So let's go ahead and do that. So copy and paste. Okay. And then this is going to be 2945.99. And I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste and copy and paste. And then we see that in 34 months, this loan has been paid off. So I'm just do this. So 34 months. And then that's going to be 90K. And then now we have the 30-year mortgage. So let's go ahead and figure out what the balance of the 30-year mortgage is at month, what was it? Month 34. and then this is gonna be 234 grand. Okay. Now, should we move this entire loan into a line of credit? The answer to that is even if we wanted to, we couldn't because we have a $50,000 line of credit, right? But also the answer is, it kind of depends because at this point the interest rate does matter, right? We have a 3% loan. This high cash flow index means that if we move this entire loan into a line of credit, we're moving from a 3 to an 8 and we're only getting an itty bitty amount of cash flow, right? So that's why we have to be very careful with this of moving a loan into an entire loan into a line of credit. Now, here's something I will show you though. If you decide that you're going to use an 8% line of credit to pay off this 3% loan, okay, the interest rate is almost, I won't say completely, but almost negligible. And this is what blows a lot of people's minds. Okay. So let me go ahead and show you how different it is when you move an entire loan into a line of credit before versus paying it off in pieces in a line of credit. So you might have heard the word terms chunking. I like to use the word sweeps, right? And so if we put in the information of loan here, so let me just kind of put in the information here. And do this. So this was just from our previous demonstration. So let me start off with the income and the expenses first. So what's the income? It's $6,000 a month. And the expenses is everything except for the loan we're trying to pay off right here. So this will be $2,000. Okay. And then what's the original balance of the loan? Is 250. And then the current balance, okay, is 234,795.61. So through 234,795.61. And then the payment amount is 1054.01. 1054.01. And so what is this sweep amount? It's just basically how much are we moving into the line of credit? And then we're just kind of paying it off over and over again, right? And so if you want to see how this looks like right here, I'm just going to move a small amount. We'll just say $6,000 into the line of credit. And then guess what happens here? It just gets paid off in 2 months, right? So relatively easy way of paying your debt using called a line of credit. And one of the reasons why you would want to do this is because the line of credit is the only tool that the bank provides where you can easily put your money in and take it out, right? And so because you can do that, you're going to prevent something called the segregation of income effect. And if you don't know what that is, it basically means that when you get paid, the reason why this checking and savings is so low is because you're essentially splitting your paycheck into many different places, right? And then leaving the leftover in the checking and savings. So there's a really, especially essentially when you just make minimum payments spread across many different types of debts, that's how the bank makes the most money. So what we're trying to do, even until the very end, is just put all of our money into one place. So that's kind of philosophically why this works. Now, you can do an extra payment on loan. There's really nothing wrong with an extra payment, but I kind of think of it as doing an extra payment on a credit card. Why is doing an extra payment on a credit card or overpaying a credit card so incredibly hard especially if you go from direct from paycheck to credit card is because if I overpay one credit card and I still have other debts, it's really hard to pay them. You can't use credit card 3 to pay credit card 2, the other debts, right? But with the line of credit, we can easily do that. Now, given that this is our last debt, it's not a big deal, but I know there are people out there who still want to use a line of credit as their main operating account until the very end, right? Because it's like wearing a seatbelt, even though you've never been in an accident, right? We've been able to easily pay off our debts, strike them all out. You can also do that for the mortgage. And this is what we're going to do with this 8% line of credit. We're going to do a $6,000 chunk or sweep, and then you see that it gets paid off in 5.4 years. Now, I know there are a lot of people out there who hate this strategy or using a line of credit to pay a mortgage, right? And it only works if you pay off the debt in the right order and you have enough cash flow. So even using this line of credit to pay off the mortgage is not that important if you're paying off the debt in the wrong order. Okay. So you have an 8% line of credit. People freak out about this. Okay. Now, what if I said, all right, well, instead of an 8% line of credit, what if the bank provided you a 1% line of credit? Right. Okay. So take a look at this right here. So 20 grand. That's the amount of interest you pay in 5.4 years. And then in right here, let's say, you know what? This whole thing with paying a line of credit with the 8% is crazy, but I'll only do if I get a 1% line of credit. Okay, 1. Look how much difference that made. I think even less than $1,000 in this case. But, okay, like really? I mean, that's just kind of a blip in the bank's balance sheet. But a lot of people, because they don't understand that finance is a holistic subject, it's not just about the interest rate. Yes, it is true you want to use the lowest interest rate tools, but using the lowest interest rate tool doesn't mean that you're going to be able to achieve your goals, because a line of credit by definition will usually have a higher interest rate because the bank is charging you for two things when with interest rates. Number one is your risk profile. So if you're a borrower who has been late, obviously and you haven't made payments on time, they're going to charge you more interest. That's number one reason why you have a higher interest rate. Number two is that you have easy access to your money, and the easier access that you have to your money, the more the bank has to charge you for that, right? So that's why a line of credit will always have a higher interest rate than, let's say, a one-way street like a loan, right? You'll never, see a 1% line of credit unless it's like a promotion period or something like that. But let's say it's 8%. Okay, what 20 grand, 5.4 years, right? Whereas if we move the entire loan into the line of credit, you'll see that this is a completely different game. Okay. So this is why I never really fear using like 8%, 10%, even 15% lines of credit, as long as I'm following the basic principles of debt payoff and know how to pay it off in the right order. Okay. All right. So now let me just kind of do this. Go back here. This is going to be 5.4 years. So I'm going to do this. So this is 0. This is 34 divided by 12 plus 5.4. And then it's going to be 8.23 years. And then we're debt free. Okay. All right. So debt free, $4,000 of cash flow a month, and now we get to sleep well, right? Actually, once you're at this point in life, you're going to have something called rich people problems. And a lot of people will never have experienced this because most people are in debt, right? But when you experience rich people problems, you actually fear having savings, because then you think about, well, if I keep all my money in savings, then my money is eroding because of inflation, right? So that's why people are always looking to actively invest money into projects to multiply their wealth, because they fear that's going to be eroded by inflation, which is the number one rich people problem. Okay. All right. Well, that's it for today, folks. This is Korean Atlanta Mentorship. So where are we at? We're at 17 minutes. So in 17 minutes, I just showed you how to pay off a lifetime of debt. So gotta tell you at the end of a YouTube video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment, right? So gotta do that excited, useful YouTuber voice. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. So, okay. All right. Well, that's it for today, folks. Have a great day, and I'll see you on the next video.